Marina Townsend, born the 7th of March 1987. I create things that tell stories. And I think I would really describe myself as a mature creative. I mean, I was made in the image of the greatest creator of all time. So I would like to think that I am also a very brilliant creative um, because of who made me. You know what? This podcast, right? So first and foremost, it's one take. I'm not re-recording anything. So what you see is the first take because I have sat and pre-recorded videos and then edited them and then not posted them. And it's just waste of time, my time. I recently did like my first live and I realized that, you know what, I don't always say things correctly. Sometimes I get my words mixed up. And when you pre-record a video, you then go back in or you stop and right, okay, let's start again. And I just can't be asked to do that. Like my whole MO is authenticity and, you know, creativity and storytelling. So I just feel like I've just realized that I've said so and like a lot. So um this podcast is long overdue. Now, I don't know if you watch Friends or you know Friends. I don't know if you remember when Ross declares that he was the one that created Got Milk. And I don't know if it's Monica or Chan. I don't know who was like, you did not invent that. And he's like, I did. Now, I'm not saying that I invented these things, but I definitely was ahead of my time. And one thing about me is when I say I create things that tell stories, that is not limited to just written content. Obviously, fashion for me is a big thing. And when I was starting my designing journey, I remember walking through Croydon, and this was like over 10 years ago. Like, I'm 38. So I was around 25. And I remember saying that I was going to design a collection that was all studded. And at the time, studs were not a thing. They potentially were creeping in, but it wasn't this, craze. And I remember walking in Croydon with one of my closest friends at the time and saying, oh, I'm going to create a collection because I feel like I want to bring studs in back. Obviously, we know that fashion just reinvents itself, but I wanted to be the one to reinvent it for that time. And I said that, and I started to search for studs and X, Y, and Z. And then, no word of a lie, a couple of months later, I don't know, I can't remember what designer, but they did a stud collection. Now, obviously, that had been in works for longer than I said it, right? But I didn't know that. And it just became this thing. And I was like, I should have just done it. But I was like, you know, taking my time. And then after that, with a podcast. So me and two of my closest friends at the time and another male friend, so two female friends and one male friend who happened to be my ex, but we were all very good friends. I was like, we decided to do a podcast, and we recorded, I think, 2 sessions in the studio. And when we listened back, it was great. Like the dynamic between us was really cool and it was really interesting and engaging. And we were like, oh, we should just do this. Like, let's do this kind of thing. And the only reason it fell off was because one of my friends, her job, she couldn't reveal who she was because of the topics we were talking about, and she's in the public sector and all of that. So we were like, okay, so how are we going to do this? It just fell off. Next thing you know, everyone and their mother has a podcast. And that again was many moons ago, so well over 10 years ago, or maybe 10 years ago. And reality shows. So before reality TV became what it is today, I was in university. I must have been 20 years old. And because I went to university when I was 19. So 20 years old, me and my group of female friends, were close. And then we met a few guys at university who we became quite close with. A couple of them I already knew from family, but whatever. So I was like, let's do a reality TV show, because during that time we were out every night practically. We were obviously studying, we were traveling. There was so much going on in our lives. And we were like, we should document this. Like, this will be fun. To the point where I got everyone together. One of my friends hooked us up with like her family photographer. We went to the studio, took images, and this was supposed to be like our profile, like our profiling. So this is this person, this is this person. And I had like a script almost. I was like, we want it to be authentic, we want it to be real life, but we obviously need to have some guidelines. Like, okay, we're going to go here, whatever. So that was when I was like 19. So that again was a long, long time ago. And the reason why it never happened was because I can't control everyone. Like, when you have an idea and it sounds so good to multiple people, like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's the excitement that draws people in, right? But then when you actually have to meet up, do things, work, that's when people tend to drop off. So these things, again, obviously I didn't invent podcasts, nor did I invent reality TV or anything like that, but I was definitely had the idea to push it in a time when it wasn't a big thing. And if I would have seen it through, who knows where it would be today. I'm so glad the reality TV didn't like continue, because I'm not built for reality TV, but I could have produced it. But I realized that through a lot of those things, first and foremost, I have been my own worst enemy, but also I kind of put it on other people. It didn't happen because this person or these people didn't pull through. And I realized that the person that I am, I've always been able to manage by myself. And up until even a month ago, I was like, I can't continue life just doing things by myself. But the reason that a lot of the reasons why that transpires that I am by myself is because I have to be, because otherwise I won't get things done. And a podcast, you know what? The reason why I was like, I'm not going to do a podcast is because I thought that I needed other people with me to do it. And I don't need that. I I am a storyteller, and this podcast ultimately is about me, my real life stories, my perspective. I will touch on things that, touch me like in real time, but ultimately the reference point for this podcast will be taken from my book. Now, I started writing a book when I was 16, 17. I had a huge amount. Long story short, I had, I think, around 30,000 words on my laptop. At that time, everything was on a hard drive. I took my laptop in to get it fixed because there was a bug. They wiped the hard drive. Me not even thinking about the book, because I had previously sent part of the book to a publisher to see if they would publish the book. I didn't hear anything back. So I was like, oh, I didn't really think it was a big deal. It wasn't until I got the laptop back, everything's wiped. And a few months later, let's say, I think it was around 4 or 5 months later, the publishing company that I sent it to, which was based in the States, reached out to me and said, do you have any more of this book? We'd love to read more and see, what it could be. It was gone. But so I was like, damn. But that just pushed me to rewrite the book. So I started rewriting it. And obviously I was, 17. So you jump now, I have continued to write this book, obviously stopped and started, but it has changed drastically. But I still have like some of the original bits, because everything was taken from my diary. I kept a diary from the age of like 11. And so I was rewriting things based on my diary entries. So I do have a lot of the original content, but it has evolved because I have evolved, I've changed, I've matured. But it got to a point where recently I realized that the book that I thought I was going to release is not the book that I'm going to release. That book, I believe, is for this. And the book that I will release whenever that time comes will be something completely different. But so I'm going to be referencing parts of this book throughout. I'm not going to be going in chronological order. I'm just going to take out bits. Just before I begin recording the podcast, I'm going to have a look at the book and pick out things that I think, okay, this is relatable. This could inspire someone, entertain someone, help someone go through something similar, and just talk from my perspective, what I experienced. And this is all real life. I'm probably exposing a bit of my business, but it's going to be things that I believe are relatable enough to help those. And a big part of it is also me just saying things out loud. I can talk, right, as I'm sure you can hear, but I don't talk much. I don't talk much to my friends. I mean, that'll be probably a topic, but I write things down. I have always written things down, but sometimes it really, really need to say things out loud. And there's things that I have experienced and I have felt that I know have dictated where I am in life, how I feel, the things that I do, don't do. And I don't think people really understand me because I've never spoken out loud about the things that make me feel vulnerable. And I just want to speak, I just want to talk. I don't think I'll have guests. I say that now. That's just not what it's about. The whole purpose of this is to creatively tell stories, real stories, in a way that is liberating for me and hopefully will inspire others. Um, However, if I was to have a guest, I feel like it would be, yeah, you can come and we can have a conversation, and we'll press record, right? Whether that gets posted is another story, because I just want everything to flow naturally. Like, you come, we sit down. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but let's see. Let's see if we have anything in common and we can talk. Get that recorded. If we're both comfortable, if we feel like it's something that we can put out there and it might interest others, then do so. If not, then you know what? We've had a conversation. Done. There's not going to be one of those, oh, let me ask you a question. Like, there's enough people having amazing guests on their podcast. I don't feel like I need to do that. I watch podcasts myself, generally for growth. Like, I love Stephen Bartlett, his podcast, and mainly that is because of the guests that he has on. I feel like over the last few months there have been a few guests that have really helped, generally to do with like health and fitness, really. But nevertheless, I'm watching to grow and to learn, opposed to gossip and hear about things that have no relevance to my life and is not going to help me. I'm not really here for gossip, and which is why my reference point is real life, and it's things that have happened. It's things that are very real. There will be things that I won't be able to go into too much detail in, or not even talk about, because it involves too much of the story involves other people, and I'm not going to tell other people's business. If they want to, that's up to them, but that's not what this is about. I have experienced enough to talk on. So that is it. That is the premise of what this podcast is all about. Podcast 7387. I'm sure you've worked out why it's 7387. Me versus me. I'm running my own race against myself. Like I said, I have been my own worst enemy in the past, and I really feel like I have changed and I have grown, and I owe that to the grace of God. But yeah, that's what it's all about. And we're going to start with the beginning, because although I'm not going in chronological order, I think it's important to start at the beginning of my story, in reference to where my book started. So I'm not going to be talking about when I was born, because I have no recollection of that, but I am going to start from the beginning. And kind of the things that happened that I believe had a huge part in who I became and the direction of my life. It's almost going to be a very big therapy session for me. There's just no one talking at me. And that's another thing. I feel like when I have tried to speak, I don't know if it's because I don't normally speak, I feel like I get cut off or people don't really listen. So this is just a way of me just to talk, and you don't have to listen. Obviously, it's choice. It's no pressure. Like, you don't have to turn on this podcast and listen to me talk, because who am I, right? But if you want to listen, you can listen, and you can't interrupt me. So yeah, cheers.